Welcome back to Pommy and Oz. How good is it to do a review of a win? Finally, it feels like ages since we've done one. What is it, nearly 6 games? And it's great to be back. So if you're new around here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're going to digest and have a bit of fun with a real professional workman-like end to the game this week. And it was an exciting game, wasn't it? It was, let's be honest, it was a real exciting game. It was an 8-point win. Hardly fought, hardly contested. And it was excitement, I think. I think the feeling is, after last week where our review was very analytical and structural and we were trying to deduce was it a plan against Richmond to take away the live and active ball? Or was it maybe a shift towards a more conservative game plan? To see Carlton come out with bold as brass approach was, in my opinion, super exciting. And I really will live by the sword that in my belief system, Carlton are a quick side. They are a fast, hard-moving, quick side to play football. And it was good to see Carlton did look for them handball chains. The handball chains were back on go. The fact that we were 18 coming into this round from playing on mark when we were top last year, which is a real shift, we thought, and that's what we discussed in Voss's game plan. And I think it makes everything work together. I think we pressed the button too late. We talked about that quite heavily against Richmond. About going into that next level. And maybe that's a confidence issue. Maybe that's a conservative approach, which I don't mind, knowing that we are back to what we enjoy. I think a big thing for me was the 39 points from forward turnovers from the boys. And that is where Voss really makes David Teague and Brendan Bolton look completely Mickey Mouse. And that is a staple. And we're going to talk about that here, of why I think one of the guys that came in, Durden, is so important. And we know, if you've watched this show, I'm a heavy advocate of two rucks. I think TDK does exceptional work around the ground. Last week versus Nankervis, I thought he was absolutely exceptional around the ground. He stretched Nank, which is what you'd expect. He's younger, he's hungrier, he's fitter. Do you know what I mean? He's lighter. That is going to happen. What I like about Pitt and him working in tandem is, I thought TDK against Stanley isn't a physical ruckman, but it allowed him to be fresh and it allowed him to that approach. And speaking to a lot of rucks, this is something that was probably the first thing I ever did when I came into this country and started taking football serious, was try and get a feel of that, because they're like the centers in basketball. Unless you play it, you don't really get an understanding of what it's about. And TDK being able to do that, one of the big things that I heard when I've spoke to good ruckmen is they get in a rhythm. There's like a rhythm. They're like a fast bowler. Once they find their rhythm, it's pretty good. Having a TDK to swing in there, because he's so opposite of Mark Pittener, really allows that rhythm to really change tact. And I want to talk about the small forwards. I'm a big advocate of 3 small forwards. I like it with the 1 mid-size and then 2 keys. I like the Owies, Motlop and Durden combination, because I think what you saw this week was, and we'll talk about how Carlton have really refined their defensive transition to defend that. I like it because I think it helps out, because I think 2 of them have got very peculiar skill sets for a small forward. Durden, he's hungry. There was that great passage of play where he smothered the kick, and then it ended up with Motlop kicking over the top, waiting calm, composed to Curnow in the goal square. But if you watch the footage, Durden is streaming past Motlop. He's there. I think Durden has got a rare gift that he's a 2-way running small forward. And that is as rare as rocking horse poo. And when was the last time you saw a rocking horse poo? Probably about the last time Essendon won a final. So it's a wee while. Little sort of dig there. But I think he's got an exceptional gift. Motlop, for me, has lots of facets, a very early stage. And this is a bold call. And don't say I'm saying they're comparable, because they're not. There's a lot to go right for Motlop to reach them heights, but very Papley-esque. The fact that he can slide into the midfield, the fact that he does like getting involved in them handball chains. That's a rarity for Smalls. Not many Smalls do it. And then Owies, I think, does his best work inside 50. And we saw a return to form for me in Mr. Matty Owies. And I know Carlton fans, for some reason, dislike him. I don't know why they dislike him, but the way that he really applies his pressure and he goes about his work, for me, is so, so important. And when you look in today's game, and this is what people forget, in today's game, it is so important when you look at what they do. Corey Durden, 21 pressure acts, and Matty Owies, 15, 13 of them being inside 50. So important because he takes away that easy kick. And last week against Richmond, he was playing the Durden role, and I don't think he's suited to that. And I think with Owies, he's an opportunist, right? People talk about Crummers. He's an opportunist. He will get in the right place. Durden's got the touch of class. Motlop will let to see where he can really go, but he's somewhere in between them as a goal scorer when you look at his junior career. Why I'm a big advocate of Motlop is you've got to give him time, and Motlop is definitely going to be one of them forwards that makes a win look better. That's what he's going to be. Kind of that Pickett mode. He's going to make a win look better. I feel like sometimes as fans, I sometimes see some of the criticism and understand that maybe people don't become invested in the other 17 teams in the competition because a lot of the mistakes we critique our boys for, all across the board in the AFL, all across the board, from number 1 to number 18, they all do it. Some do it less than others, some do it more than others, but Motlop is a very, very good forward. You can see it in the making, but he's a situation-based player. Durden, for me, is going to be the player that is going to be in every game. He is your low ceiling player, and this is why I liked him over James Rowe and players like that, but he's a very high floor player. And James Rowe was, for me, had a high ceiling, but the floor was fucking low. Do you know what I mean? So, for me, Durden is going to be that kind of almost an exciting Jamie Cripps, where Matty always is Jamie Cripps. All about pressure, but he will bang you 2 or 3 goals in when the opportunity allows. And what was really impressive this week, let's go to the tactics board, right? And this is what I really enjoyed, was Carlton's defensive setup from transition. We're starting to see now the mids really flood back. And I want you to take a note, right, of these 2 little players here. So this, for our example, is going to be our wingers, Blake Acres and Hollands. Why Hollands and Blake Acres are 2 of the biggest acquisitions at this football club, probably more so than George Hewitt, is they have a rare, uncanny gift. One's tall with an elite engine. One has an incredible elite engine. And I want to put this in perspective that Walsh is one of the all-time leading first 2 games played, distance ran, right? There is 2.4 kilometers between Hollands and Walsh in their first year, playing very similar roles. Walsh had a bit more inside time, but in that game style was heavy 2-way running. The wings didn't really have to run 2 ways. This is huge. These are huge numbers. Huge numbers. When we're getting into 15Ks, you are talking mental. And his hard work and effort and his ability in the last 2 weeks to make a late spoil on Lynch and a tackle, and on Cameron he did it, and Hawkins. These are impressive numbers because he has got the defensive savvy. However, this week we saw something new from Hollands. I'm going to explain it. So what we're starting to see now is Carlton traditionally man up. They zone up, we'll call it. There's no such thing as man up anymore. But they zone up. But what this midfield doing dropping back, the wings pincer. So the wings now pincer here, right? So they are effectively half an outlet ball, but also they're taking away the short option. Carlton traditionally, and it's a very, very annoying myth when I analyse these games, Carlton is shit at defending transition. It's really easy to say someone's crap at something and then not offer an explanation, but I'm going to tell you why. Genuinely here, this is the weak area for Carlton, just outside 50. It's that short entry. Geelong and Richmond are real good at getting these entries a bit later, they get an extra kick away, and it opens up the angles. If you're here, we'll change the color of this guy so it's more contrasting. If you can get the ball here from here, right? So we'll say here, you're there. If you can get the ball from here, from there to there, somewhere along here, opens up your angles, makes it easy to hit that darting ball instead of that looping ball, something Carlton are guilty of. Just makes it a lot easier to hit targets and pick apart zones. And what Geelong do very well to pick apart a zone, just incidentally, is they combine lateral and diagonal and horizontal running. So they go like this and they go across the zones, causes chaos. Jeremy Cameron is a master at doing that because he sees the chaos happen before it happens. Lewis Young got caught out once where someone runs in front of him, Ollie Henry runs that way. Suddenly Cameron takes that 1 second of indecision of whose zone is this falling across, and bang. And it's why quite often you see events like this week where that miss kick from Max Holmes outside that calls to goal, because that miss kick fell into a place that had two players covering a very large zone. Incidentally, this outside 60 area, it's how you break a zone. You go there, but it's a risky kick because if it gets intercepted there, when you're set up with a very good midfield wall, it's a goal. It's a goal against. So back to it. So they pincer in, right? But then Durden and Motlop, they float back. And what you found at Carlton is that you would have Curnow here, and then you'd probably have Owies just a little bit here. Now, Carlton are already set up here, and we didn't do this last year, with an exit strategy in mind. And I'm a big advocate of the corridor football, and this is where we're going to talk about where Carlton's incredible strength at this is starting to really materialise. So now what happens is when Carlton do bring this to ground, right, you would have found that the exit generally was, let's just say this is Akers, was to him, but now Motlop is on his bike, and Carlton are spreading hard. They spread so hard. And you'll get this formation, right? Let's just say, we'll just move some defenders around. You'll get this formation now, and this has happened quite a lot, right? And there was a great passage of play where Doc here, right, when they got the ball here to Akers, Doc streamed here. He got the ball. He went inside. He went here. Bang, goal, 1 out. That is basically what we're starting to see Durden and Motlop do. They peel back to be almost playing 2 up. It allows the midfield to get into this weak area here and allow them to transition the ball. And it is impeccable football. And it is opening up the corridor. And we're starting to see, particularly in the third quarter, Carlton start to use that exit ball less and less. And it's really important to remember when people talk and complain about the long bomb down the wing, it was used over 70% of the time in the AFL last week. That is your common exit strategy. It's safe. And you saw it in the last 5 minutes. Incidentally, won us the game with 2 cracking Harry Mackay grabs. And it's a good time to do it because the reason is, right, we'll go back to this tactics board just quickly. If you're chasing a goal, right, you will commit more men here, right? They're looking for that, right? And they are going to commit more men, right, just outside, right? They're going to pressure high up here, but they're going to force the turnover. But it leaves that long kick, as you can see where Mackay is here, leaves that Mackay kick here where you can peel off and get that one out, get that one-on-one. And that's what you found with it. It was basically one smaller bloke and one tall bloke on Mackay. And Mackay eats them up for breakfast, with us leaving someone in the goal square as well who's tall, who was Curnow towards the end. Really helps you have that avenue there. But that is a big thing there from the Blues. But that big thing for me that we have to talk about is their ability, right? The last quarter, 17-4, 9-1 in forward half intercepts was a big thing. But the pressure, the telling stat, 47% accuracy from a side that averages about 75 there is huge from Carlton being able to add the pressure. People sometimes overlook at the stats in tackles. Pressure acts are equally as important because they are recorded for being in a situation when a disposal occurs that can influence play. That is really, really important, right? And for me, 63 points from intercept versus 29. Huge numbers from Carlton, being able to intercept it because they caused that pressure. So around the ground, Carlton lost last year by 40 points from intercept possessions, right? From Geelong. They just caused transition goals, left, right, and centre from Carlton because of our Hail Mary style. This week it was flipped, right? And that partly comes from the setup behind the ball now has, if anything, not got more defensive, which is what we worried about last week because that was a setup to kill cold ball. Carlton hurt them from this avenue because they have set up more aggressively and they have an exit strategy in mind. And that corridor football from Carlton is schmick. We've got to talk about that. It's schmick. And when Carlton do that, it is so strong. And that's why you get 39 points to 2 from forward half enforced turnovers, because Carlton's applied pressure all around the ground. And it's a real sustainable model. I don't know if Kingy and pundits like that are going to talk about it, but what Carlton displayed this week is a really sustainable model. It is more sustainable than last year by the way that they set up in stoppages and without the ball. And your setup without the ball tells you everything. Geelong have incredible rigid structure, and Carlton managed to cause chaos, as we talked about Collingwood in the review last week, because they're manic pressure, and then they go through the corridor, they mix it up. Geelong are very good at spreading, but if you start to interfere with their zones, a bit like Richmond, they really rely on that intercept ball. They have a more controlled game style. It helps put pressure on, and you saw this week, Geelong's accurate goal kicking incidentally kept them in the game, but it fell off because of the pressure that Carlton were applying. They knew that these chances were rare commodities, and that is a big thing with Carlton when they've lost games last year. They knew chances at times were rare commodities when we got behind the 8 ball, and that is it. And I want to talk about being incredibly proud of these boys. Incredibly proud. Ollie Hollands and Cowan, people are starting to get behind them. It's no surprise to me. And I'm not going to sit here like some melts do and say, oh, I told you. Because at the end of the day, even a broken clock's wrong twice a day. Do you know what I mean? We all want Ollie Hollands. Whether you've been a pro Ollie Hollands or negative Ollie Hollands, couldn't give a shit. Because you want him to do well, because you're a Carlton football fan. So am I. But it's how proud I am of their efforts, because that was the first time I can honestly say I've seen Carlton hang on as a team since the Hawthorn game, right? Where that was a real team effort, right? Because they were all bad in that last quarter. They were clinging on for dear life. This quarter here, that fourth quarter, looking back on the replay, it felt more controlled. I wasn't scared. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't scared at any point. I felt quite composed. Usually when I watch the replay, I'm bricking it watching it again. Looking back, the boys were quite... There was still them errors, and that's going to come. That's going to be ironed out. You've got to remember, Richmond, they won the flag with one of the lowest percentages. People forget they did dominate games, but a lot of them games they dominated, they ran over teams in the fourth, when the other side was quite frankly better for 3 quarters, hence their low percentage. Carlton to Richmond won the flag. They never ever worried after that. Carlton have to learn to do this, and it's sometimes good to fall over the line, but this is one of the times that they can look back at this replay and now have them positive stories. You remember we used to talk about 2 years ago with David Teague, when they opened their book and go, oh shit, we're 20 ahead with a quarter to play. What do we do? And someone's just drawn a Willie and Boss on Carlton's one because they've never done it. Now, a lot of these players can go in there and go, oh, okay, this is what we did. We went sideways. We retained the ball. And the more that book, and this is like a life lesson, the more your book has situations where you can refer back to when you've done it, easier every scenario in life goes. And that is a beautiful thing for me. There's a beautiful thing for this football club. So I'm not saying the lid is off. I'm excited and I'm happy. And look at the smile on my face. And boys and girls, I demanded last week on Teams, we've got to get behind them. And if you're shitting yourself, imagine what they're feeling. Got to get behind them when they win. You have to push them up. You have to raise the standard. Be equal in your criticism with your praise. Do Do you know what I mean? And the boys have got a duck off the back. Premiership, even though they may have been maimed or whatever excuse you want to throw at this win, they have done it. And the less evidence you can give to downplay it, the better for these boys. Because they do read some of the comments. I know they do for facts. So they've done well. They've done well. They've done what's required of them. They now have got over the hard bit where, if you remember my preview for the season, we planned it on worst case scenario. So we were 0-2 and we still made the top 6. Now they're 6 points ahead, +6 in their mind. So they go to GWS now, North, St Kilda, all these games. They've got that air of confidence. And you remember what we said last year when they beat Dogs and Richmond and they played Sydney. And we said, look, they're probably 8 points ahead mentally. So they can go out there with a little bit of freedom. The pressure comes off your shoulders a bit when you're ahead. It comes off. It's not a must-win game. And I felt they played that game like a must-win game. I think the messaging from the club, from Voss, just quietly would have been, this has to be win. This has to be a dub. This has to be 4. And that would suit the tactical. And let's give Voss some credit there. I am on this show every year for the last 3 years complaining about structure and tactics. Someone actually came up with a tactic to negate another team. And shout out to Voss, because this week to last week, to how the game style is genuinely, is so opposite. That's good coaching to be able to instill that into your players in a week and then roll it back. That is incredible coaching, and that holds us in good stead for the future. So all in all, I'm super excited. I'm super excited about where this leads. Obviously, it means nothing if you don't win next week. Right? It means nothing. But you know what? There's something in my heart of hearts that doesn't feel like that now. I feel like I feel like what I know some fans, I don't like calling it, but you know the word, the P word, P something SD. I don't feel that, but they're scorned before I understand what Carlton fans are feeling, and I feel like I don't have that with GWS next week. I don't feel like there is anything to worry in terms of that. Oh, Carlton are going to blow it. I feel like they have turned a corner, and I feel like last night should go a bit of the way to repaying the faith. Do you know what I mean? That they believe in themselves just as much as we do. So, Bluebaggers, and if you're not a Bluebagger, I wish you best of luck this weekend. But Bluebaggers, talking to you directly, my beautiful boys and girls, enjoy this one. Enjoy this one. Do what you need to do. Next week, we go again. Do you know what I mean? Go again. The battle for 4 points. Battle for 4 points and get behind them, because I think a big part of their belief came from the noise, and the noise was intense. I could hear it on 2 volume. So, you know what? Winning's good, isn't it? It's good. So enjoy it, because we haven't experienced many of them. Super proud. Love my Bluebaggers, my fellow Bluebaggers. If you're not a Bluebagger, I love you too. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll be back tonight, 6 o'clock, with Terry for team reviews, where we're doing the live player ratings. I've totally massacred that. Also, another point of note, tomorrow I'll be live. Tonight I'll be live, the Brisbane game. And also, I just wanted to let you know, if you are heading to NSW for the GWS game, there is going to be a pre-match function hosted by our wonderful NSW Carlton fan base. There'll be raffle, there'll be auctions, there'll be finger food, guest speakers as well. It's going to be $10 entry, right? And drinks at bar prices on the 1st of April, 12 till 3 at the Pullman, which is in Sydney Olympic Park. So please get down there. Rafi's helping organise that. He's a very good friend of the channel. So I want to make sure that if you Bluebaggers are going there, check that out. Support them. They do wonderful work. Till next time, though. Go the Blues! Pull out!